Welcome to the inaugural episode of Dorman Lakely's D&D Everything channel. I think it's the greatest name ever. This is something that I thought I would do because I've been working a lot in dungeon mastering the past couple years. I came up playing the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, what is I believe now known as 2E. It's changed a lot since then, and there's the computers have just made it much more interesting, and so is YouTube. So what we're going to talk about today is the first thing I've been working on that might be able to help dungeon masters and even players is that they release Wizards of the Coast released this SRD, this standard something document, and it's got like all the base information and rules for free. So I have made this, been working on this site here. Right now I'm tentatively calling it the Dungeon Master screen, and it has a few nice tidbits right on the front. So we got these NPC generators, but I'm going to jump to that in a bit. So it's mostly geared towards making a dungeon master's life easier. Now, as I'm sure a lot of you have done, your games have probably been online. I'm going to focus on that a little bit. We'll be talking about FantasyGrounds. I can try and talk rather uninformed about the other virtual tabletops, but that's the one we use, and we'll show what we're doing in it and all of our add-ons and such in a future episode. But the first thing I noticed when I'm running in FantasyGrounds is, and I've always done this, is like sometimes you just need your own NPCs. There's nothing worse than the crew goes into the random business that you had not, necessarily planned out everything because you don't want to spend all week planning your entire game. And then you're like, well, there's this grumpy-looking halfling behind the counter, and his name is Almert Waterpelt. And so you could use this random character name. I often end up hitting it a lot of times, especially when I'm looking for like the name of a villain. And that's a work. This is all a work in progress. This app, I'll put the link in the description with the full disclaimer that it's a work in progress. But this one I liked. I got that from somewhere and adapted the code to this, and it gives you random tavern names, which sometimes are pretty silly. Now here's the cool part. Say you're working on your NPC in FantasyGrounds, you click this and it will copy that to your clipboard. I spent way too much time trying to get that to work. So, that's the crooks. And then I also it has a good chunk of the SRD here. You need to know about your classes and all of this. And, a lot of these SRD sites right now, they're like full of ads, and they look like they're pretty standard, just plain websites. I wanted to make this look a little bit closer to what you might see in the player's handbook. You got your tables here. I'm not certain that's useful, but you can order by your features or by level. This one's funny. And all of this is pulled from data, so I didn't enter this all in manually in case y'all were about to be impressed. This is one I find quite useful. You can, if you type 25 here, nothing happens. Oh, I need to set that up. But you can search for types. Or names. And then you got to remember that some things are not in here because this is just the SRD and you got to pay for it. You got to pay for beholders apparently, which is unfortunate. But also, makes sense. The spells I've used quite a bit, but then there's always these questions. For instance, conditions often is a big one. And the idea is this whole thing has stuff that you would have on your Dungeon Master screen, but it's always missing the one thing. And there's more I'm adding. Items and equipment divided by their type. But really the main thing that this does is, all right. And so the NPC generators is, I have 3 of them. This one, actually, believe it or not, you might use quite a bit when you're making an adventure and you need some commoners. And it'll just do a variation of the commoner. And sometimes they'll be a little tougher. You see this one here has a quarter challenge rating instead of 0. Probably because its constitution came out a little higher. I don't know. Anyway, so it's and that just gives yourself a random commoner of a particular race. Randomly rolls their scores instead of just giving you the default scores. But that's not the interesting one. Then you know what you want to make, right? You want the full-on create an NPC, and as you know, those people that use FantasyGrounds, that they have an NPC generator, and it's pretty cool, but it's also a bit of it's very tiny, and it's FantasyGrounds. So if you're in there and you got a big thick campaign, then it's going to probably run a little slow. So this gives you all the goodies, so you can come up with oh, that's great, a random monster name. You pick its type, its alignment, set its size, and when you set its size, the hit dice will automatically adjust. You can give it languages if you would like. Now, if you'll watch, when I change these things, every time I change something, some scores these, it's recalculating that challenge rating there. And then you can either enter your scores, or if you're really not that interested, you do this. And that's just, you can roll 4d6 or 3d6, and the 4d6 is dropping the lowest. 3d6 is usually like, well, you don't want your thing to be that smart, and then I rolled better with it. You can decide which saving throws you want, and it will calculate the proper plus. And don't forget, this is all something you can adjust after you're done in FantasyGrounds. You want it to be able to see in the dark. Say it can see 120. It's got to be able to. I should have that default to walk, huh? Let's give it the standard. This thing is unable to be blinded, and it's resistant to radiant damage. I'll just do a basic melee attack. Now, this is really neat. So, I call this claws. We'll see this thing as, oh, look at that. I have to fix that. Slashing, number of targets 1, reach. It automatically generates this description, and those of you that know FantasyGrounds know this description has to be worded just right to be able to click on the 2 hit and the damage. So I did that. I also have spell casting, and this one's really fun too. It automatically generates that very special description. Let's just say it's standard intelligence. 4, 3, 2, 2, 1. Really, you can do whatever you want. You can say this thing randomly knows 1 9th level spell, and none of that affects anything. So then, I don't load all the spells because that's a lot of spells. So say you want to do your first level spells. If you type 1, you get your first level spells, and now you can just add these. This is really makes life easy. Don't worry, it'll generate that description at some point. Then you add special abilities, legendary actions, and then when you generate it, if there's no errors in the back, spellcasting description did not work, but trust me, it will. But here's the really neat part. You do this, and it downloads your NPC in a named XML file that you can import in FantasyGrounds, which I shall now demonstrate. This ought to be interesting. Now, as you know, FantasyGrounds, it takes a minute to start up. Okay, so to import an NPC, you would go here, you can click the NPCs, and then of course the window pops up. And you see this little tiny blue up arrow, which depending on your theme may look totally different. So that's fun. You click that and find your NPC. Here, I'll just grab Eohane Eohane Greatwalk and import him again. And now I'm going to search and you're going to see I have two. But it's the one here. So there it is. It won't have an image, of course. He's got a morning star, and all of this was generated in the challenge rating calculated in the Dungeon Master Screen app. So then all you have to do is throw an image, probably not identify him. Ooh, this is a cool module. If y'all don't have it, you can get this inventory module. So when you make your custom NPCs, you can have their gold and it'll like drop on the map. So, then you have your NPC. And that is a brief primer on my DM Screen app, which is a work in progress still. As you can tell, there's a few bugs. So if you want to play with it, the link is in the description. There'll be lots more D&D content coming up. I'll record these, probably pretty often because I'm always working on my D&D stuff. We'll talk about music. I like to compose music for my campaigns. Sirenscape, FantasyGrounds extensions that I use, the Dungeon Draft map making, and others. There's lots of things to make map. Incarnate's another good one. General campaign things. Leave questions in the comments, and there's more to come. So don't forget to like and subscribe. If anyone sees this, tell all your friends. I'm not Dorman Lakely, by the way, but that was my character.